The first time Kai Porter locked eyes with the woman across the bar, it wasn't because of her expensive tailored suit or her confident posture. It was because of the obnoxious drunk man looming over her, refusing to take no for an answer. Kai hadn't planned on being anyone's hero tonight. He'd only stopped for a quick drink after his late shift at the warehouse, his tired muscles aching and his mind preoccupied with how to make his daughter Emma's 8th birthday special, despite being 3 months behind on rent. "I said I'm not interested," the woman said firmly, her voice carrying just enough for Kai to hear over the ambient noise of the Thursday night crowd. "Come on, sweetheart, just one drink," the man slurred, placing a hand on her shoulder, something in Kai snapped. Maybe it was the exhaustion from working double shifts all week. Maybe it was remembering how his ex-wife had walked out 3 years ago, leaving him to raise their daughter alone. Or maybe it was just basic human decency. Whatever it was, Kai found himself sliding off his bar stool and moving across the room. "The lady said she's not interested," Kai said, his 6'2" frame easily dwarfing the drunk man. "Time to find another seat." The drunk man turned, his bloodshot eyes narrowing. "Mind your own business, buddy." "I'm making it my business," Kai said evenly, hands relaxed at his sides but stance firm. "Walk away." For a tense moment, the drunk man seemed to consider his options, swaying slightly. Then he scoffed, muttered something under his breath, and stumbled away toward another corner of the bar. "Thank you," the woman said, releasing a breath. "Though I could have handled it," Kai nodded, already turning to leave. "I'm sure you could have. Have a good night." "Wait," she called after him. "Let me buy you a drink. It's the least I can do." Kai hesitated. He needed to get home to relieve Mrs. Gonzalez, who had kindly agreed to watch Emma despite his being late on payments for babysitting services too. But something about the genuine gratitude in the woman's eyes made him pause. "Just one," he conceded, sliding onto the stool next to her. "I'm Amelia," she said, extending her hand. "Amelia Morgan." "Kai Porter," he replied, noticing how soft her hand was compared to his calloused palms. "What are you drinking, Kai Porter?" "Just beer, nothing fancy." She signaled the bartender and ordered him a craft beer and another of whatever she was drinking, something clear with lime that looked expensive. "So," she said, turning to face him fully, "what brings you out on a Thursday night?" Kai took a sip of his beer. "End of shift drink. You." "Bad day at the office," she said with a wry smile. "Needed to decompress before heading home to an empty apartment and a mountain of emails." "What kind of work do you do?" Kai asked, more out of politeness than curiosity. He wasn't looking to make connections tonight. Amelia hesitated. "Corporate consulting," she said simply. "And you?" "Warehouse logistics at Hamilton Shipping, assistant floor manager." He didn't mention the side gigs, weekend handyman work, evening delivery driving when his neighbor could watch Emma. Didn't mention that even with all that, he was barely keeping their heads above water. "Sounds physical," she commented, glancing at his broad shoulders. "It pays the bills. Most of them anyway." He hadn't meant to add that last part, but exhaustion was making his guard slip. Their conversation continued, and to Kai's surprise, it flowed easily. Amelia was smart, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in what he had to say. She didn't talk down to him or flaunt the obvious class difference between them. For his part, Kai found himself drawn to her quick wit and the way her eyes lit up when she laughed. An hour passed before he realized it. When Kai checked his watch, he swore under his breath. "I have to go," he said, standing abruptly. "I'm sorry." "Hot date?" Amelia asked with a teasing smile. "My daughter," Kai answered honestly. "The sitter's been with her too long already." Something changed in Amelia's expression. "You have a daughter, Emma. She's 8. Pride softened his tired features. "Best kid in the world." "I'm sure she is," Amelia said, and there was a warmth in her voice that hadn't been there before. "It was nice meeting you, Kai. You too, Amelia." He hesitated, then added, "Be safe getting home." She smiled. "I will." As Kai walked away, he had the strange feeling that he was leaving something important behind. But Emma was waiting, and that was all that mattered. When he arrived home, Mrs. Gonzalez was dozing on his worn couch, the TV playing softly. She woke as he closed the door. "Emma went to sleep about an hour ago," she informed him, gathering her things. She finished her homework and ate all her dinner. Good girl. Thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez. I'm sorry I'm late. Kai reached for his wallet, knowing it was nearly empty. I'll have your payment by Monday, I promise. The older woman waved him off. Don't worry about it, Kai. You're a good father. That's what matters. After she left, Kai quietly opened Emma's bedroom door. His daughter was sound asleep, her dark curls spread across the pillow, one arm wrapped around the stuffed elephant he'd bought her for her 5th birthday. The apartment was small and shabby, nothing like what he'd wanted for her, but seeing her sleeping peacefully still made his heart swell. Night, princess, he whispered, closing the door gently. Later, as he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his thoughts drifted back to Amelia Morgan. There had been something about her, something beyond her obvious beauty and charm. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to imagine what it would be like to see her again. Then reality set in. Women like Amelia didn't end up with men like him. Besides, Emma was his priority, not dating. With that thought firmly in place, he closed his eyes and fell into an exhausted sleep. The next morning was a typical Friday rush, getting Emma ready for school, making sure she had lunch packed, and dropping her off before racing to the warehouse for his 7 a.m. shift. By the time his lunch break rolled around at noon, the encounter at the bar seemed like a distant dream. Until his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Kai Porter speaking, he answered, wiping sweat from his brow as he stepped away from the loading dock. Kai, this is Amelia. From the bar last night, he froze mid-step. Amelia, how did you get my number? You gave your full name and I have resources. She sounded almost apologetic. I hope that's not too weird. It was definitely weird, but Kai found himself more curious than concerned. What can I help you with? I wanted to thank you properly for last night. Dinner, maybe? Kai's grip tightened on his phone. I'm not looking for charity, Amelia. It's not charity, she replied quickly. I enjoyed talking with you. I'd like to do it again. He hesitated. I have my daughter most nights. Bring her, Amelia suggested, then added, or we could do lunch sometime, when you're free. Something in her voice and earnestness perhaps made Kai reconsider. I have my lunch break now, actually, but I'm at work and I'm not exactly presentable. I'm not far from Hamilton Shipping. There's a diner across the street, isn't there? Marlene's. Yeah, but I can be there in 15 minutes, if you're free. Kai glanced down at his work clothes, jeans, and a company t-shirt, both dusty from the morning's work. Then he thought of Amelia in her elegant outfit from the night before. This was a bad idea. 20 minutes, he heard himself say. I need to clean up a bit. Amelia's laugh was warm through the phone. See you then. Exactly 20 minutes later, Kai walked into Marlene's diner, his face freshly washed and his hair combed back with damp hands. He spotted Amelia immediately, sitting in a corner booth. She was dressed more casually today, dark jeans and a simple blouse, but still managed to look completely out of place among the blue-collar crowd. You came, she said, smiling as he slid into the seat across from her. I'm as surprised as you are, he admitted. A waitress came by and they both ordered a burger for him, a salad for her. When she left, an awkward silence fell between them. So, Kai finally said, corporate consulting. What does that actually mean? Amelia's eyes flicked away for a moment. I help companies optimize their operations, streamline processes, improve efficiency, that sort of thing. Sounds interesting, Kai said, though he wasn't entirely sure it did. It can be. What about you? How long have you been at Hamilton? 6 years. Started on the floor, worked my way up to assistant manager. Not exactly a meteoric rise, but it's stable work. Their food arrived, and as they ate, the conversation gradually relaxed. Kai found himself telling her about Emma, how she was top of her class in math, how she wanted to be an astronaut one week and a veterinarian the next, how she'd managed to stay resilient even after her mother left. She sounds amazing, Amelia said, genuine warmth in her eyes. You must be very proud. She's my whole world, Kai admitted. Everything I do is for her. And her mother, Amelia asked cautiously. Kai's expression hardened slightly. Decided parenting wasn't for her. She lives in California now with her new husband, calls Emma on her birthday sometimes. I'm sorry, he shrugged. It was hard at first, but we found our rhythm. Emma's okay, that's what matters. Amelia nodded, then surprised him by sharing a bit of her own story. how she'd worked her way through college, how her parents had both passed away within a year of each other while she was in her 20s, how work had become her life. "No siblings?" Kai asked. "Just me," she said with a small smile. "Gets lonely sometimes." Their lunch hour was nearly over when Kai reluctantly checked his watch. "I need to get back," he said, reaching for the bill that had been placed between them. Amelia beat him to it. "My treat, remember," he wanted to protest, but caught something in her expression that made him reconsider. It wasn't pity, it was something closer to determination. "Thank you," he said instead. "This was nice." "It was," she agreed. "Maybe we could do it again sometime." Kai hesitated. The practical part of him knew this was complicated. He had responsibilities, a tight budget, and Emma to consider. But another part of him, a part he'd neglected for a long time, wanted to say yes. "Maybe," he said finally, "but I should warn you, my life isn't very exciting. Work, Emma, sleep, repeat. Sounds more fulfilling than my schedule of meetings, reports, and takeout dinners alone." Amelia replied with a surprising amount of sincerity. They exchanged numbers properly this time, and as they parted ways outside the diner, Kai found himself watching her walk to her car, a sleek black Audi that cost more than he made in a year. "What are you doing, Porter?" he muttered to himself as he headed back to the warehouse. Over the next 2 weeks, Amelia texted regularly. Nothing intrusive, just small check-ins that gradually became the highlight of Kai's day. They met for lunch twice more, and each time, the conversation flowed more easily. Kai learned that Amelia loved old movies and hated cilantro. She learned that he played guitar and could fix almost anything mechanical. What Kai didn't know, what Amelia carefully avoided revealing, was exactly who she was in the corporate world. She kept her answers vague when he asked about her work, focusing instead on finding out more about him and Emma. The turning point came when Emma's school announced a last-minute father-daughter dance. It was a Friday night, and Kai had already committed to an evening delivery shift he desperately needed. "It's okay, Dad," Emma said bravely when he explained the situation. "Maybe next year." Her resignation broke his heart. 8-year-olds shouldn't have to be so understanding about disappointment. That evening, as Emma was doing homework at the kitchen table, Kai's phone rang. It was Amelia. "Hey," he answered, stepping into the hallway. "Can't talk long." About to head out for a delivery shift. "On a Friday night?" she asked. "No hot date, just work," he said. "Extra hours when I can get them." There was a pause. "Is Emma with the sitter?" "Yeah, Mrs. Gonzalez is coming over." He hesitated, then added, "There's a father-daughter dance at her school tonight, but I had already committed to this shift. Can't really afford to cancel." Another pause, longer this time. "What if I watched Emma tonight?" Kai blinked in surprise. "What?" "I could come over, stay with her while you work. That way you don't have to pay the sitter." "Amelia, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking, I'm offering," she interrupted. "Besides, I'd like to meet the famous Emma. She sounds like quite the character from your stories." Kai hesitated. He'd known Amelia for less than a month, but something told him he could trust her. "Let me ask Emma," he said finally. To his surprise, his daughter was immediately enthusiastic about the idea. "Is she the pretty lady from your phone?" Emma asked innocently. What pretty lady?" Emma rolled her eyes in that way only children can perfect. "The one in your pictures, I saw when you were texting." Kai felt his face warm. "Yes, that's Amelia, and I don't have pictures of her." "You have one," Emma insisted. "From when you went to lunch, it was true." Amelia had insisted on taking a selfie during their second lunch, and he'd saved it. He hadn't realized Emma had noticed. An hour later, Amelia arrived at their modest apartment, looking casual but still somehow elegant in jeans and a sweater. Emma, initially shy, warmed up to her almost immediately when Amelia asked about the solar system model on the kitchen table. "It's for science class," Emma explained, lighting up. "Dad helped with the structure, but I painted all the planets myself." "It's incredible," Amelia said, genuinely impressed. "You've even got the relative sizes right. That's attention to detail." Kai watched their interaction with a mixture of emotions he couldn't quite name. Seeing Emma respond so positively to Amelia stirred something in him, hope maybe, or danger. He wasn't sure which was worse. "I should get going," he said reluctantly. My number's on the fridge, and Mrs. Gonzalez is next door. If anything, we'll be fine, Amelia assured him. Emma's going to teach me how to make proper hot chocolate, right, Emma? With marshmallows, Emma confirmed solemnly. When Kai returned 4 hours later, he found them curled up on the couch watching a documentary about space. Emma was fast asleep, her head resting on Amelia's lap while Amelia gently stroked her hair. The sight made his breath catch. It had been so long since he'd seen Emma so comfortable with anyone besides himself or Mrs. Gonzalez. How was she? He asked softly, setting down his keys. Amelia looked up with a warm smile. Perfect. She's brilliant, Kai, and funny. She told me all about how she's going to be the first person to establish a colony on Mars. That's this week's plan, he said, smiling as he carefully lifted Emma into his arms. Last week it was deep-sea exploration. When he returned from putting Emma to bed, Amelia was standing by the door, her purse over her shoulder. Thank you, Kai said earnestly. You didn't have to do this. I wanted to, she replied simply. She's wonderful, Kai. You're doing an amazing job with her. Something about the sincerity in her voice, combined with the exhaustion of the day, made his guard drop. Sometimes I feel like I'm failing her, he admitted quietly. She deserves so much more than what I can give her. Amelia stepped closer, her expression serious. She has what matters most, a father who loves her enough to work 3 jobs to give her a good life. That's worth more than any material thing. Before he could respond, she rose on her tiptoes and pressed a gentle kiss to his cheek. Good night, Kai, she whispered. And then she was gone, leaving him standing in his doorway with his heart racing for reasons he wasn't ready to examine. The following week brought a downpour of unexpected expenses. The apartment's aging refrigerator finally gave out, and the landlord claimed it wasn't his responsibility to replace it. Emma grew 2 inches seemingly overnight, rendering most of her school clothes too small. And the check engine light came on in Kai's 15-year-old Honda, a warning he couldn't afford to ignore given how essential the car was to his livelihood. By Friday, Kai was stretched beyond his breaking point. He'd maxed out his credit card buying a used refrigerator and had barely enough in his checking account to cover the mechanic's diagnostic fee. The rent was due in a week, and for the first time since becoming a single father, Kai didn't see a way to make it work. He was at the auto shop, staring numbly at the estimate $1,200 for a repair he absolutely needed but couldn't possibly afford when his phone rang. Amelia. Hey, he answered, too drained to fake cheerfulness. What's wrong? She asked immediately, picking up on his tone. Nothing, just... Car trouble. Serious car trouble, Kai sighed. Transmission issue. Essential repair, impossible price tag, just one of those weeks. I'm sorry, she said, and he could hear the genuine concern in her voice. Is there anything I can do? Not unless you've got a spare transmission lying around, he joked weakly. Don't worry about it. I'll figure something out. I always do. Let me help, Kai. The offer hung between them, heavy with implication. Kai's grip tightened on his phone. I can't take your money, Amelia. It wouldn't be I can't, he interrupted firmly. I appreciate the offer, but no. There was a long pause. Okay, she finally said. I understand, but the offer stands if you change your mind. After hanging up, Kai spent another hour cobbling together a plan he'd max out his other credit card, pick up extra shifts over the weekend, and push the rent payment as late as possible without incurring eviction proceedings. It wasn't ideal, but it was doable. Barely. The mechanic promised to have the car ready by Monday afternoon, which meant Kai had to figure out how to get Emma to and from school in the meantime. He was contemplating this new logistical challenge while waiting for the bus when a familiar black Audi pulled up to the curb. Amelia rolled down the window. Need a ride? Kai hesitated only briefly before getting in. The day had been long enough without adding a 90-minute bus commute. Thanks, he said as he buckled his seatbelt. I appreciate it. Where to? Home. I need to pick up Emma from her after-school program first. As they drove, Kai stared out the window, lost in calculations and contingency plans. He barely noticed when Amelia reached over and squeezed his hand briefly. It's going to be okay, she said softly. He wanted to believe her. Emma was thrilled to see Amelia, chattering excitedly about her day as they drove back to the apartment. Watching them interact in the rearview mirror, Kai felt a complicated mix of emotions. In just a few weeks, Amelia had become a fixture in their lives in a way he hadn't anticipated or planned for. At the apartment, Amelia declined his half-hearted invitation to come up, sensing he needed space. But before he could get out of the car, she touched his arm. "Kai, there's something I need to tell you," she said, her expression suddenly serious. "About my job," he tensed, unsure what to expect. "I'm not just a corporate consultant," she continued. "I'm the CEO of Morgan Enterprises." The name was vaguely familiar, but Kai couldn't place it immediately. "We're a holding company," Amelia explained. "We own several businesses including—" She paused, looking uncomfortable. "Including Hamilton Shipping." Kai stared at her, processing this information slowly. "You're my boss's boss's boss." Essentially, yes. A cold feeling spread through his chest. "Why didn't you tell me?" At first because it didn't seem relevant. "Then because I was enjoying being just Amelia with you," she admitted. "Not a title or a position or a bank account." "Does this have something to do with what happened at Hamilton last month? The efficiency consultants?" Kai remembered the suits who had toured the warehouse, the rumors of restructuring that had followed. Amelia shook her head. "No, that was scheduled long before I met you." "Kai, I'm telling you this now because I want to be honest with you, and because I think I'm falling in love with you." The declaration hung in the air between them. Kai felt as if the ground had shifted beneath him. "Amelia, you don't have to say anything," she interrupted quickly. "I know this complicates things. I know the timing is terrible with everything you're dealing with, but I needed you to know the truth about who I am." Emma tapped on the window, impatient to go inside. Kai nodded to her reassuringly, then turned back to Amelia. "I need to process this," he said honestly. "It's a lot." "I understand," she replied, her professional composure slipping back into place. "Take all the time you need." The weekend passed in a blur of extra shifts and careful budgeting. Kai couldn't stop thinking about Amelia's revelation and what it meant for whatever was developing between them. By Sunday night, he'd made a decision. He needed to end things before they got more complicated. Monday morning, he woke to a text from Amelia. "I hope you had a good weekend. I understand if you need space, but I'm here when you're ready to talk." Her consideration only made his decision harder, but it was the right thing to do, the practical thing. When he picked up his car that afternoon, he would call her and explain that their worlds were too different, the power imbalance too significant. However, when he arrived at the mechanic's shop, he was greeted with unexpected news. "Your bill's been taken care of, Mr. Porter," the receptionist informed him cheerfully, handing him his keys. Kai frowned. "What do you mean taken care of? It's been paid in full, including the new tires we recommended." "By who?" The receptionist checked her screen. "The payment was processed through Morgan Enterprises, corporate account." Kai felt his anger rise as he drove to Amelia's office building downtown. He had specifically told her he wouldn't take her money. This felt like a violation of his boundaries, no matter how well-intentioned. The receptionist at Morgan Enterprises looked surprised when he asked to see Amelia Morgan, but made a quick phone call. Moments later, Amelia emerged from an elevator, her expression a mixture of surprise and apprehension. "Kai," she said, approaching cautiously. "I didn't expect to see you here." "We need to talk," he replied tersely. "Privately." She led him to her office, a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was exactly what he'd imagined a CEO's office would look like, and it only heightened his sense of the gulf between them. "You paid for my car repairs," he said as soon as the door closed behind them. It wasn't a question. Amelia didn't deny it. "Yes. After I specifically said I wouldn't take your money." "Technically, you didn't take it," she pointed out. "I made a decision to help someone I care about who was in a difficult situation." "That's not the point, Amelia." His voice rose slightly before he got it under control. "You overrode my decision. You used your money to what? Save me, fix my problems, make me indebted to you." Her eyes widened. "No, that's not what I was trying to do at all. I was trying to help." "I don't need your help. I don't want your help. Not like this." Amelia's professional composure cracked slightly. Would your pride rather see Emma eating ramen for a month because you had to choose between food and car repairs? The question hit him like a physical blow. Don't bring Emma into this. She's already in it, Kai. She's part of every decision you make. Amelia stepped closer. I care about both of you. Is that so hard to believe? That I might want to use the resources I have to make life a little easier for people I care about. You don't understand, Kai said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. My whole life I've done things on my own, made my own way. Been responsible for myself and my daughter. Your money, it creates an imbalance. How am I supposed to feel like you're equal when you can solve my biggest problems with pocket change? Is that what you think I see when I look at you? A problem to solve with money? Amelia's voice was quiet now, hurt evident in her tone. Because what I see is a man who works harder than anyone I've ever known, who loves his daughter fiercely, who made me laugh more in 3 weeks than I have in 3 years. She paused, then added softly, a man I'm falling in love with. The words hung between them, genuine and vulnerable. Kai felt his anger begin to dissipate, replaced by confusion. Why me, Amelia? You could have anyone. I don't want anyone, I want you. She smiled sadly. The man who stood up for a stranger at a bar, not because he thought she was important or wealthy, but because it was the right thing to do. Kai was silent for a long moment, processing her words. Finally, he said, I can't pay you back, not anytime soon. I don't want you to pay me back, Amelia replied, but if it makes you feel better, consider it a loan, 0 interest, no timeline. That's not how loans work, he pointed out. It's how this one works. She hesitated, then added, Kai, I've never been good at personal relationships. I'm much better at spreadsheets and profit margins, but I know what I feel for you is real. And if you feel anything for me too, I hope we can find a way forward that respects both our needs. The sincerity in her eyes was impossible to doubt. Kai found himself thinking about the past few weeks, how natural it had felt to have Amelia in their lives, how Emma had flourished with her attention, how he himself had begun to hope again. I'm not comfortable with you paying for things, he said finally. Not regularly. Not without discussing it first. Fair enough, she agreed readily. We discuss financial help before it happens, and to be clear, I don't want to be your benefactor or whatever. I want to be your partner, if you'll have me. The word partner resonated with Kai in a way he hadn't expected. It had been so long since he'd had someone to share the load with, someone to lean on when things got tough. I think, he said slowly, that I'm falling for you too, despite my best efforts not to. The smile that spread across Amelia's face was radiant. She stepped closer, reaching for his hand. So where do we go from here? She asked. Dinner, Kai decided. A real date, just the two of us. But I'm paying. Amelia raised an eyebrow. Even if I make considerably more than you do, especially because of that, he said firmly, but maybe we can keep it under $50. She laughed, a sound of pure joy that made something in Kai's chest loosen. Deal. 6 months later, Kai stood in Amelia's kitchen, their kitchen now, flipping pancakes while Emma set the table for 3. Moving in together had been a big step, one they hadn't taken lightly. They'd spent months finding their balance, learning to communicate about money and expectations, and making sure Emma was comfortable with every transition. To Kai's surprise, Hamilton Shipping had promoted him to floor manager 3 months ago, a development he suspected might have had something to do with Amelia, though she insisted it was entirely based on merit. The raise had helped ease his financial strain, though he was still learning to accept that Amelia's wealth was a fact of their life together. Dad, Amelia said we can go to the Science Museum after breakfast, Emma called, carefully placing forks beside each plate. Did she now? Kai glanced over his shoulder at Amelia, who was entering the kitchen with a stack of mail. It's a special exhibit on Mars exploration, Amelia explained with a wink. Couldn't pass that up for our future astronaut. The easy way she included Emma in her plans, the genuine interest she took in his daughter's passions, still amazed him daily. Emma had bloomed under Amelia's influence, gaining confidence and developing new interests. And Kai himself felt more secure than he had in years, not just financially but emotionally. Sounds perfect, he agreed, sliding the last pancake onto a platter. As they ate breakfast together, laughing and planning their day. Kai marveled at how dramatically his life had changed since that night at the bar. He'd gone from a struggling single father to part of a family unit that worked one where he was still very much Emma's dad, but no longer had to carry every burden alone. Later, as they wandered through the museum, Amelia slipped her hand into his. "Happy?" she asked quietly. Kai watched Emma press her face against the glass of an exhibit, her expression rapt with wonder. Then he looked at Amelia, brilliant, kind Amelia who had walked into his life unexpectedly and made it immeasurably better. "Happier than I ever thought possible," he answered honestly. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Kai found Amelia on the balcony of their apartment looking out at the city lights. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "I've been thinking," he said softly. "Dangerous pastime," she teased, leaning back against him. "I'm serious," he continued. "These past 6 months with you, they've shown me what's possible, what life can be when you share it with the right person." Amelia turned in his arms, her expression curious. "What are you saying, Kai?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. It wasn't an expensive ring, he'd insisted on buying it himself, but it was elegant and unique, just like her. "I'm saying I love you," he said simply. "And I want to build a life with you, the three of us together." He opened the box, revealing the ring inside. "Amelia Morgan, will you marry me?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Are you sure? This is a big step." "I've never been more sure of anything," he said confidently. "We make a good team, and I think we could make a great family." "Yes," she whispered, her voice catching. "Yes, I'll marry you." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Kai reflected on the strange twist of fate that had brought them together. How standing up for a stranger in a bar had led to the love of his life. How the struggling single dad and the CEO had found their way to each other despite all odds. "What are you thinking?" Amelia asked, noticing his thoughtful expression as she admired her ring. "That sometimes," he said, pulling her close, "the best things in life are the ones you never see coming."